my children of Christ, your girl Karina here, and happy, blessed Thursday. Here we go. Hello, my children of Christ, your girl Karina here, and happy, blessed Thursday on this beautiful Thursday on the second last week of September. And here we are. Wake up. We are literally finishing up September, and October is already saying hello. Around the corner, like, hey, I'm over here. It's so true. So that is why every single day is not for us to waste it, to mope around in fear and despair and feeling overwhelmingness that I need to know the answers from God. Just relax, dwell in the love and grace of God, knowing that whatever answers God presented to you right now is what He wants. And two, hope in God, hope in Christ, that whatever God calls you to pursue is literally what He wants you to go and find out what awesome surprises awaits you. That is one of the beautiful things I love doing, is that even though I'm being called to do something and pursue something that's just like, yikes, I'm just like, okay, I'm sure on the other side of that, there's something waiting for me that I know I'm gonna love it. Why? Do you know that guarantee why? Is because it's from God our Father. So keep on trying, keep on striving. The moment you let the fear speak is the moment you're letting the enemy win. It's as simple as that. All you gotta do is keep on spending time with Christ so that you will not ever let the enemy win. Letting the enemy win is letting him have more attachment on you. So think about that every single day as you pursue each day, glorifying God and not giving up on Him. Because why? He'll never give up on you. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast episode of the Catholic Warriors Talk Show. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful to have you with me here today, spending 30 minutes with me on a weekly basis. I pray. And for those that have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much. And for those that are not subscribed, well, you know what to do. Just hit the subscribe button down below. And if you're watching this on Spotify, please follow. And it'd be great for you to join me in the family, because why? This will not be a time wasted for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Friends, I want to talk to y'all about prayer as a means to discover God's will. So before I get started on my talk, I want to start with the words of Christ. He said it straight out: whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So let that sink in for a second. Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So when we think about that, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? It's like, oh, if I don't do the will of the Father, I'm like a nobody. No, you're not a nobody. There is always going to be that struggle of just like, the fear is always going to kick in instantaneously, right from the get-go. And that is part of the human instinct. We always want to have that security and that sense of like, okay, I'll be good to go. I'm not going to go through any struggle. Yes, obviously that is the human nature of thinking. However, when it comes to pursuing God's will, when we know it's for our own good, think about it this way. I remember when I was a kid, when it came to eating veggies, like vegetables, I remember vividly in my mind right now that I purposely wanted to push the plate of veggies away from my face. I was like, nope, I don't want to eat it. Nope, And I'll be in this entire vibe of denial that I know it's good for me. I know vegetables and eating veggies is absolutely good for me, but I was like, nope, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want to eat it. I just want to eat what I want to eat. And then veggies just like pushed on the side. When it comes to this case though, when you know something's good for you, coming from God our Father, for sure, immediately there is that sense of like, no, I don't want it. Because it's like, no, I don't want to like do it because it's just not for me and I think I'm probably gonna ruin it. Like, no. The moment you let those thoughts sink in is immediately giving ammunition to the enemy 1,000% to latch onto you to prevent you from actually pursuing God's will. So in this case though, we all act like that immediately. Just like, hey, I don't want to pursue God's will. It's not my thing. I don't know. Like, I'm afraid, like, if I'm going to ruin God's plan. Like, no. Which is why our very first thing that we should be striving for each day is only desiring to fulfilling the will of God. And how do we know it's the will of God? Well, you spend time with Christ in adoration, going to Mass, going to confession. So you have that constant dialogue with Christ, with God our Father, being like, hey, like I unload to Christ all of your stress, your worries, your fears, everything. Unload that all to Christ and God will give you the peace that you'll be fine. You will be fine. God is always going to be holding your hand despite of your past wounds, which is why I mentioned about your past wounds in my last podcast episode, which is very crucial because at the end of the day, the enemy always tries to use every desperate tactic to prevent you from pursuing God's will. So a good indicator for you to know that you are following the will of God is when you know that the enemy is attacking you 1,000%. That should be a good sign. Not a way to discourage you from moving forward, but as a way to be like, hey, if the enemy is upset with me, hence the attacks, I'm doing something right. Same thing with leading ministry, same thing with anything. When you know that you are doing something right, the enemy will not be happy. The enemy does not rob an empty house, a house with valueless things. So think about it in that mindset when you're constantly striving for the glory and grace of God. When you're pursuing God's will, always be alert, aware, and awake, knowing that the enemy is always trying to find desperate ways to try to hold you back. Past wounds, past mistakes, obviously fear. The willingness to know all the answers. Like, I want to know everything first before I pursue God's will. No. Whatever answers God permits for you to see at, like, right now is for your own good, which I mentioned in my last video. So that is why, first and foremost, we got to strive to desire to fulfill the will of God every day. Every day. The moment you wake up, it's like, okay, what is God calling me to do today? So, therefore, when you face everyday circumstances or occurrences, ask yourself these two questions. What does God want of me in this situation? What does God want of me in this situation? And two, what would be more pleasing to God? Especially when you're in a work environment and then your boss is like, not so much in your favor, or your coworkers kind of undermining you, etc., etc. Humbly and quietly ask yourself in your mind what would be pleasing to God in this situation? And what does God want of me in this situation? So, yeah, for sure, it's going to take a little time. But when you do that, you're reaching out to Christ, striving to have that deeper connection and relationship with Him. So when it comes to pursuing God, you will have clarity as you go along. The question is, are you willing to take that first step? The first step is always the hardest because that is the biggest hurdle of willingness to pursue God. All the time. The first step. But when you make that first step, that's not for you to chicken out and be like, oh no, it's too hard for me. Or like, oh no, I'm too scared of what the next step's gonna be. No. Once you make that first step, you take the second step with Christ. Constantly trying to call upon God's power and grace upon your heart. Because the moment you feel the sense of discouragement and I'm not worthy of pursuing this plan because like my old self is like so embarrassing and I'm ashamed about it. That's like literally handing yourself into the hands of the enemy and letting the enemy do what he wants to do with you. So what you do is you call upon your bosom in the mirror. When you constantly humbly ask God, what do you call me to do in this situation, or what would be pleasing to God in this situation, you call upon your bosom in the mirror. She humbly said yes, unconditionally, in being the mother of Jesus Christ. And she did that with no hesitation. The only clarification question she had was, like, I'm a virgin, so I haven't engaged with any other men, so like, how is this possible? That was probably it. As a 14, 15-year-old, for sure. That was an obvious question. But other than that, she had no doubt. No doubt. So when God calls you to pursue God's will, doubt, the seed of doubt, should not come close to your heart at all. The moment it's like at the verge of touching your heart, you know what to do. You take that up to Christ. You give Christ all your fears and all your past wounds and all your past mistakes that are burdening you, so you can have clarity to make better judgment in your decision making. Yeah, it's going to be hard to humble yourself in the process, telling Christ what your fears are, what your past sins were, what your past wounds are, and all your burdens that are just weighing you down constantly. Yeah, it is humbling, but the results are absolutely worth it. The only way for you to have clarity in your life and in your judgment and in your decision making is throwing to Christ everything that's clouding your judgment, and also detaching from your worldly desires. Yeah, for sure. It's like, I don't want to like let go of it because it's like part of me. Oh, it's either you want to be in heaven or you want to be in the opposite of heaven, in the pits of hell. You can't have one foot of the world and one foot of Christ. That's literally a fact and the reality. You can't be like, oh, well, I'm going to like put one foot in the world and live my like whatever life, and then one foot for Christ because I'm serving the church. Like, it doesn't work that way. Because why? When it comes to making decisions, you don't know which one to choose. And you're kind of like jumping left and right. And then at the end of the day, you're confused. And at the end of the day, you're overwhelmed because you can't make a specific decision because you're confused. But when you have both feet with Christ and for Christ, when God calls you to pursue God's will, it's like, hey, well, I know what to do. Because why? You made the right choice to place both feet for Christ. So that's why when it comes to God presenting you his will in your face and you refuse to say no because you know deep down it's good for you, but then it's like, I don't want to let go of my old ways. Or like, no, this fear is succumbing me. I'm going to let it weigh. And like, God's going to keep on throwing it back to you every time. Each time you try to run away from God, each time you try to run away from God, God's going to always keep on bringing it back to you. It's like, here you go. And then you're just standing there like, okay, Lord. And yeah, for sure, it's going to be a very humbling moment for you there, but constantly, the more you say no to God, it's like, God will keep on bringing that same will back to you with love, of course. Knowing that whatever God's presenting to you to pursue, which is part of God's will, right there and then, there's no harm in trying. Trying with boldness, though. Trying with confidence. Trying with full-on hope that he will never leave you. He will never abandon you. And despite who you were in the past, that should never dictate how your future should be. Just like the saints. They didn't let their past dictate their future. They left it behind. Just like St. Francis of Assisi. He left his wealth, his old self behind, And from what I was told as well, St. Francis of Assisi was definitely a ladies' man too. So at the same time, think about that in your life, that despite who you were in the past, when God calls you for a better you and a better version of you, leaving the old you behind is number one priority. Because what is pleasing to God is ultimately the goal that we should be achieving, right? So if you pray about our daily activity, right, we will be given plenty of light to know what God is calling us to do. When you actively put God throughout your life, in your day-to-day chores, your day-to-day routine, you will have clarity of thought what to do. Even though it's mundane, God should always be a part of it. Every moment of the day, God should be a part of what you're doing throughout the day, so that you are constantly striving to know what God's will is. But the question is, are you allowing yourself to let God be a part of your life in every moment of the day? Right? So, my friend, always try to make time for personal prayer. Yeah, it's good to go to Mass throughout the weekday. Great. Alright, God was calling me. No, I'm just kidding. I literally had my phone on Do Not Disturb, but I don't know, for whatever reason. Anyway, here we are. As I was saying, making time for personal prayer is so important that we must be doing every single day as a routine. As I've mentioned before, always make time to read the daily scriptures for the day, meaning the readings that will be read throughout the week, like each day of the week. And it's beautiful to see the total fluidity of the context of what is going on throughout the week. It's just very beautiful to experience that and to know how God will speak to you through his word. When you actually do that, friends, no matter what you're going through in your life, God will speak to you in those daily scriptures. Trust me, it will hit you like a ton of bricks in a good way. In a good way, not in a bad way, as in like, diminishing you and making you feel disheartened. No. It's the sense that no matter if you speak verbally, out loud, what you're going through or not, God can hear you. Why? Because God can see through your heart. So despite of you serving the church, God can see through your heart what your intentions are. And it's very crucial that no matter how much you serve the church, we must be doing it to glorify God at the end of the day, so that we will have that deeper relationship with Christ constantly. So when you have personal prayer, it will move you to act in a particular way in your behavior, in a good way. Why? Because when you live your day-to-day life, having the Word of God at the back of your mind makes you aware how to react in certain situations. When there's a time to speak up and when there's not a time to speak up, and when there's a time of argument, it's just like, no. I'll let God to take care of it at the end of the day. So when you live through your day-to-day life, trying to pursue God's will, let God do his part. When you're in that situation of wanting to know answers like right now, you're not allowing God to do his part for you. It's like saying, God, move aside. I can figure this out on my own. That's literally what you're trying to do, essentially. Just telling God, to move aside. I can figure out the answers myself. No. When you let God do his part, his timing is beautiful. Because if you want God to unveil all the answers to you at your own time, it may not be in your favor, or it may not be good for you to know the answers at that time. Who knows? So whatever you know and whatever God permits you to know at that specific time, just be like, okay, I'll work with this. And then in due time, I'll get my answers when I'm not thinking about it. And then I'll be like, okay, cool. gotta relax. We gotta know how to relax every single day. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep on being overwhelming beings for the rest of our life. And that's not a comfortable feeling. And I'm sure you know that by now. So, when you have personal prayer, it permits you to change for the better. You make better choices. You make better decisions. You make better habits. And you combat your habitual sins that you once used to have, which enables you to modify your lifestyle entirely for your own good. So, running away from God should never be an option, because God can always see you. It's like, God, I'm gonna run! No, don't look at me! But God's like, I'm like kind of right here, and I'm just gonna keep on presenting this to you until you finally say yes to it. Yeah. I know I make it sound funny, but essentially that's how it will run. When God has something beautiful for you, he's not gonna put it away and be like, well, you said no, so I'm just gonna like put aside no. No, God's gonna be like, hey, like you said no the first time, and then you're gonna say no again. Like, here you go. Do with it again. Try again. So that's how it is. We gotta keep on trying and try to have clarity of mind. Therefore, choosing who to surround yourself with. If you have people in your life that are just crowding you with gossip and garbage, GG, it's time to say bye. Because each and every one of us has a beautiful seed to grow. That little mustard seed in our hearts to grow in faith for God. And how can we nurture that seed if we crowd it with garbage? It's like trying to put your seed of faith in the middle of a landfill. You expect it to grow at the end of the day? No. It's going to be no sunshine, no water, no lights. So think about it that way, because the enemy uses every desperate tactic. So therefore, whoever you're surrounded with, the enemy will use that too. So we must be mindful in how we change our lives for the better, and therefore changing our behavior as well too. So when you put Christ at the center of your life, you will have clarity to be able to pursue what God is calling you to do. All you gotta do is to put aside that pride of yours out the door and humble yourself in that process. And be like, okay, like, I'm a scared person right now. I'm fearful right now. But I know that whatever this is, it will be awesome. In due time, I will find out. If all of us had that mindset, this world would be a better place to live. But the sin of pride is absolutely horrid. So that honestly makes us constantly having this divided mind all the time. So as I said before, have both feet to Christ so that in your everyday routine, you will be able to have clarity of mind. Because having one for the world and one foot for God will not get you anywhere. You will be living a very confused person, overwhelmed and clouded, not being able to make the right choices, and always easily influenced by the secular world. So in order for that to be a no-no, enable God to illuminate your mind to what his will is through personal spiritual direction. Personal spiritual direction. So write letters to our Blessed Mother. Write letters to Jesus. Write letters to God. So that you will constantly deepen that relationship, so you know how God is speaking to you every single day. When you humbly ask from your heart something, God can hear that. You're like, Lord, I'm stressed. I need your help today. That's it. Simple. Simple of heart. Simple of mind. Calling out Christ. You're like, okay, I need you. That's it. So when we see that God wants something of us, we should do it promptly and cheerfully. Okay? when God's calling you to pursue as well, we shouldn't be like moping around like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Or like, oh no. No, we gotta do it with joyfully of heart. Just having this bubbly, joyous of heart and promptly, okay? Not just like kind of dragging your feet like, like no. Not like a little kid being dragged to church. No, just have a happy heart, a joyous heart, and do it promptly. Don't keep on saying, well, I'm gonna like kind of wait on it, or I'm gonna like think about it. No, don't tell God to take a message, okay? When God's calling you to do something, you act on it. And then know for a fact that you're doing it with full love for God at the end of the day. When you keep on telling God, no, 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 there's no running away, as I said. God will keep on bringing it back to your life unexpectedly. So, do not rebel with God when it does not coincide with your own inclination. Do not rebel with God. So as I said before, do not keep on saying no. That's like playing tug of war with God. It's like, if you only just let God take the cake, then you will be able to have a peace of mind and have a peace of heart and not panic and not live in fear for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way. So do not rebel with God when the plan that God has waiting for you does not coincide with your own inclinations. There's no arguing with God. It doesn't get you anywhere. And plus, it's like you're telling the enemy, here I am, do what you want with me. So, you know where that will take you. So, therefore, do not accept his will because there is no other option, okay? That is one of the things that we tend to think about. That is like, we're only accepting God's will because there's no other choice. Or, in my last point, do not rebel with God, meaning that like, no, I don't want to do that, but then you pursue something else. As like a way to rebound, okay? No, it doesn't work that way either, right? Do not conform to God's will without any motivation of love. It ties into my previous point about accepting the will of God because there's no other option. No, you shouldn't wait for rock bottom in order for you to pursue God's will. That is an absolute no-no. We should ultimately pursue God despite of the options because God's will is the only way. Christ said himself, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. It's flat out. Flat out clear. There's no sugarcoating that. So do not conform with God's will without any motivation of love. You don't pursue God's will because of like, I hate you. No. It's like, I'm pursuing this because my love for you is absolutely awesome. And I know what you have presented to me will be great and awesome. And I will see that in due time. So, why do I say that? Because God wants to love us. He loves us so much. So, he's going to give us what's good for us. It's like God giving us veggies. That is like so good for us, for our nutrients and stuff like that. But then obviously, stubborn us, we're just like, no, I don't like veggies. Like a little kid. But that's what I'm saying. God wants us to love the divine will. With holy abandonment. Holy abandonment and complete trust in God. Okay? Holy abandonment and complete trust in God. Okay? When you pursue God's will, have those two elements hand in hand because that's absolutely important in order for us to pursue God's will. Complete holy abandonment and complete trust. And yeah, for sure. I'm probably sure if you're watching this, you probably have trust issues. But with God, there's no need for trust issues. So, there's no need to play tug of war with God. There's no need to rebel with God. There's no need to tell God, okay, well, I have no other option, so you're my only option left. No. God should be the only way I pursue. You don't only pursue God's will and then back out like a chicken. Doesn't work that way either. So you can take one step and then you chicken out because your fear spoke to you loudly than anything else in the world. The moment you let fear speak to you is the moment you tell it to shush with the voice of God. So constantly Having yourself equipped with the Word of God is absolutely key in combating that voice of fear. That voice of fear should not be speaking louder than any other voice than God himself. It is true. So, when you say you believe in God, it should not end there. When you say you believe in God, you do that with full-on physical action by pursuing God's will, spiritually by spending time with him in adoration and serving the church, and as well as showing the love of God to those around you, because if you only just say I believe in God, so does the demons too. The enemy also believes and acknowledges there's a God. So you wouldn't be any different from the enemy himself. So the only way to distinguish yourself from the enemy is to pursue God's will with love for him. Not with like, here we go. No, you do it because you want to, you love God, and you know that it's good for you. So, with that said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying for the whole entire video and podcast episode. I'm so proud of you. So with that said, stay tuned for part 2 because there's a lot to unpack. And I did not want to cluster it all in this podcast episode. So you'll have time to be able to kind of let either of these points sink in your heart and so you can apply it to your life. So without further ado, God bless, and I'll see you guys soon next week in my podcast episode, God willing and God have, and as I will say in all my podcast videos, don't be afraid to be true words of Christ. Bye! See you soon!